Namaste. Welcome to today's class on Drsya Viveka, number 8, I think. So let us start with a prayer and then we will chant the first 5 verses of the text. So start with the prayer first. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So let us practice chanting the first 5 verses. I think just for the last time I will do it twice, and after that we will just do it once from now on. So but from now we will do each verse twice after completion of both the lines. So you can practice it. Number 1. Rupam drishyam lochanam drik Tadrishyam driktu manasam Drishyadhivrittaya sakshi Drigeva natu drishyate. Rupam drishyam lochanam drik Tadrishyam driktu manasam Drishyadhivrittaya sakshi Drigeva natu drishyate. Nilapita sthula sukshma Hrasva dirghadi bhedataha Nana vidhani rupani Pashyet lochanamekadha. Nilapita sthula sukshma Hrasva dirghadi bhedataha Nana vidhani rupani Pashyet lochanamekadha. Andhyamandhya patuttveshu Netra dharmeshu chaikadha Sankalpayen manah shrotra Tvagadau yojyatamidam. Andhyamandhya patuttveshu Netra dharmeshu chaikadha Sankalpayen manah shrotra Tvagadau yojyatamidam. Kama sankalpa sandehau Shraddha shraddhe dhriti tare. Hrir dhir bhirityeva madin Bhasayetyekadha chitti. Kama sankalpa sandehau Shraddha shraddhe dhriti tare. Hrir dhir bhirityeva madin Bhasayetyekadha chitti. Nodeti nastameti esha Na vriddhim yati nakshayam. Swayam vibhatyatha anyani Bhasayet sadhanam vina. Nodeti nastameti esha Na vriddhim yati nakshayam. Swayam vibhatyatha anyani Bhasayet sadhanam vina. So what we were looking at was analyzing ourselves and our own experiences in the light of some suggestions from our spiritual wisdom, the Shastra, the Vedic Shastra. So this is the very method of analyzing, the analysis, analyzing means the analysis of what one has to do in order to become totally free and independent. And so, going back to the example that we started with in the very beginning of the Drsya Viveka, that there seems to be a mix-up between two completely separate entities that really they are not on the same level at all, but because of my confusion and ignorance, they seem to be come together and they cause a problem for me. And so, I think the example of the electricity and the appliance is really a good one. I think that we should keep that in mind. That relatively speaking, this is a relative example, it's not an absolute example. Relatively speaking, the electricity is something which is not limited to the functioning of an appliance. It's completely independent. It has properties that are just amazing, which are very common to all the appliances, whether the appliance can be a heater or it can be an air conditioner, it could be a fan, it could be anything else. It's independent of it. It can power all of them. But should there be a confusion in its own identity? So let's say that there's electricity, Mr. Electricity or Miss Electricity, and has an identity of that I am electricity. But due to some confusion, and this is the whole, this is the entire reason for the creation. This is an interesting thing. Just pause on that part of it. Ishvara, the creator, only has the ignorance and confusion to use as paints for the creation. So supposing it's a painter, and the painter needs some paints in order to display the variety of things in a picture. If it's a colored picture, otherwise it's black and white. Even black and white you can do, different shades of gray. But in a picture which is colored, you need different shades of the paint in order to display a picture. So similarly, Ishvara has to display a picture. And to display a picture, the only thing Ishvara has is the possibility of ignorance and confusion. It is said that, really speaking, to know the Ishvara as the creator and myself as nothing but the same essence as the creator, there is happiness. To know exactly as it is happiness. To not know it is the problem in life. So the difference between happiness and unhappiness is just confusion. This is all that it is. There is no real problem. There is no real confusion. It is just the possibility of not taking something which is true to be true. And conversely, taking things that are not true to be true is the problem. So going back to the example, so if the electricity has an identity, which is that I am a very powerful, free entity. I can go anywhere and I can power any of the appliances. But if there is a confusion that the electricity thinks of itself as a heater only, you ask the person, who are you? The electricity. And the heater looks upon itself, the electricity looks upon itself as a heating mechanism or a fan. Let's say fan is better. So you look at it and says, I'm a fan. And a functioning fan. See how beautifully it is all happening, and so on and so forth. If that should happen, then if the fan should develop a problem where the rotor and there's some problem, and then the fan stops working, if the electricity has that identity which is wrong, it will also suffer. It will say, my gosh, I have broken down. When in fact the matter is that the electricity is independent of the breaking down of the appliance. So this is the situation. We are mixing up two things and taking them as to a single one. This is the creation of the whole creation, of the whole universe. It appears to be very real, it appears to be functioning and so on and so forth, but it is really not any more true than it needs to be. That being the case, Shastra says the best way to understand your true identity is to analyze, is to do some thinking, some vichara, as we were doing in the earlier class. I'll just give you a very gist of it, and then we can do it in more detail some other time. So the objective is that I want to be totally free of problems in my life, and the way to do that is to develop a mind which is capable of analyzing. Who am I? Why am I having a problem? What is the truth behind it? Is there some wisdom that I can bring to my mind that enables me to understand that I am stuck, there's nothing I can do, in which case there can be some minor improvements. Or in fact, if it is possible to be drastically free, totally free, then I need to understand how. And so to need to understand how, I need to have certain way of thinking. And so this is what is called the sadhana. So the sadhana means the way of understanding. And the sadhanas are of very different ones. So there it is said that there are some basics that you have to do, like shama, dhamma, uparama, titiksha, samadhanam, etc. You just have to calm down, think about things, and not be involved with unnecessary blaming yourself, blaming others, and so on. Just think. So this is what is called the basic sadhana. But the most important sadhana, as we were discussing in the previous class, is called vichara. Vichara, which is based on Viveka. So vichara means a thinking which is based on what the Shastra is saying, a way of analyzing. And what the spiritual Shastra here means, the spiritual books of Vedanta, of Vedas, what the Shastra is saying, by the way, the word Shastra is a very interesting one. It's a Sanskrit word. It comes from combining two words, Shasanat Trayate iti Shastraha. Shasanat Trayate. So Shasanat means by teaching you. So Sashanat here means it's a very definite teaching, nothing speculative. It's not a philosophy. It's knowledge. There is a difference between philosophy and knowledge. Philosophy means actually the English word called philosophy stems from the Greek word philo, which is knowledge. But the current use of philosophy is speculation. That's my philosophy. What is your philosophy? What do you think? Knowledge is something different. Knowledge is something about something different. My philosophy is that I'm a male. What is your philosophy? This is not philosophy, it is knowledge. Either you are female or you are male or something definite. And so really then the vichara means that you have to think along the lines of what the Shastra is saying. And the Shastra says that, so Shastra means it teaches you, and Trayate means it protects your identity. So it gives you protection. Otherwise the life is just full of confusion. Everybody says something different. Experiences are all varied. And so I have no protection. But by teaching, it gives you certain self-protection. So this is that word Shastra. So I'll use that word Shastra. You'll understand how it came from. So what the Shastra says is that, listen, you please contemplate on what I am telling you. And that is that you are getting two things mixed up. And the Drsya Viveka is a very beautiful start of starting this analysis. And it says, okay, you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to learn about God or this, that, or the other, go to the church or go to the temple or something. You just look at yourself. You have all the ingredients, my friend, in order to arrive at a conclusion about freedom. So this is what the first 5 verses are saying. So it says, listen, let's start counting the way your body and mind and your instruments of perception are behaving. So he says, listen, here's what happens. In order to make a distinction about various things in your life, you need to see things in singularity. The same eye has to look at everything and say, this is left, this is right, this is red, this is blue, this is yellow, and so on and so forth. Same eye. But the very interesting thing is that the eye which is same itself changes, and its changes are felt by something higher. So the first verse is Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik. Then Tad Drishyam Driktu Manasam. So the mind has the ability to see changes in the eye itself, not just the eye, but all the sense organs. As we were saying, that it's a dispatcher that knows where all the taxis are. And so one taxi doesn't know where the other one is, but the dispatcher, which is at a higher level, has a view of all the things that are working. And so the mind is the dispatcher. So Rupam Drishyam Lochanam Drik Tad Drishyam Driktu Manasam. Okay, so is the dispatcher the final boss? No. Why? Because Drishyaha Dhivrittaya Sakshi. So it's kind of like, there are multiple dispatchers. Multiple dispatchers. There's some that are responsible for the west side of the town and some that are responsible for the east part of the town. There are two dispatchers. So dhivrittayaha. Dhivrittayaha means that the minds also keep changing. It's not the same mind. Even though the mind bosses over all the sense organs and can make a decision which sense organ is working, which is not working, what and so on, which is the eye functioning, not functioning, as the second verse says. But it itself as a dispatcher is now guarded over by the boss. Kind of like the owner of the taxi business that has multiple dispatchers. The owner is the Sakshi. And now something dramatic happens. Who is the owner also has a boss on top of that or not? And the Shastra says, believe it or not, no. You as the individual Sakshi do not have another boss on top of that. You have complete freedom. And how? Why is that? There is a big change in all the, sense organs and the minds and the body and so on and so forth. And you, sense organs, the body and the mind, etc., are the appliances. You are the electricity which is totally free of them. And if this is not clear, please think along the lines that I am suggesting. So this is the vichara, this is the contemplation that one has to do. And the Shastra says, the Sakshi. Sakshi means you. So, this is not like Sakshi means there is some kind of a entity that I have to figure out. You. I is the Sakshi. Me? The Sakshi, the total boss? How? Because I don't feel that. We know. You don't feel that right now. And but once this analysis is complete, you will find that this is really true. I'm not telling you something which is not true. I have no reason for telling you something which is not true. I don't want anything else. I'm just telling you this is the truth. Like the laws of physics, this is the law of reality. And so just think about it, and you will yourself see what I am telling you. And which is Drigeva natu drishyate. This is a very important statement. As we said last week, there's just one sitting there quietly. Drigeva natu drishyate means this becomes never overlorded by somebody else. That's what it really means. Because the other ones, like a taxi, is overlorded by the dispatcher is overlorded by the owner. The owner overlorded by someone else? No. It doesn't need to. If it is overlorded right now, it is overlorded by ignorance. That's it. You are the boss, you don't need anything else, but you don't think so. You need to think so. That's it. So this is the thesis, and this we will develop today in more detail. So, having given the summaries mantra, the first one, kind of like a mantra, then this number 2, number 2, 3, 4 and 5 explains this. So in number 2 it says that listen, all the various so the forms by a single eye is very clear. But now in the second verse he says, don't you see that all the changes in your eye, andhya means blindness, mandhya means inability to, not total blindness but not clarity, or patutvam means very clear. These are all the netra dharma. These are all the okay, I'm sorry, number 2, I skipped one. So in number 2 it says Nila Pita Sthula Sukshma Hrasva Dirghadi Bhedata. So all the changes in the various forms are seen by one Pashyet Lochanam Ekada. So that was done. But then in number 3, then the conditions of the eye also are different, and they are seen by the mind. And those are conditions like andhya means blindness, mandhya means non-clarity, patutva means clarity. These are all netra dharmeshu sankalpayet manaha, means that the mind is able to see very clearly. And the same thing is true for shrotra. Shrotra means the ear. Tvag. Tvag means the ability to touch. All the 5 sense organs. It should also apply to that. Okay, then number 4 was Kama Sankalpa Sandehau Shraddha Shraddhe Dhriti Tare. So that the mind itself, which is a boss of the other ones, can change. Means that it is not the final one. How? Because sometimes the mind is full of desires, kamaha. Sankalpaha. Sankalpaha means a very definite idea. Yes, this is true. Sandeha, doubt. Did I close that door? No, I don't think so. And so on. Shraddha. Yes, I must follow this. This seems like this is the right thing. Ashraddha means, I don't know what they're talking about. I have no faith in that. Then dhriti tare. And then hri. All those kinds of, I won't go into the detail. The various emotional ideas, various mental, and we are aware of that. It's a very interesting thing. If you were to simply write down during the day all the changes that occurs in your mind, it's mind-boggling. It's so shades of gray in the mind. Sometimes I'm happy, sometimes I'm slightly happy, sometimes I'm very happy, sometimes I'm jealous, sometimes I'm fearful, sometimes I'm relieved, all those kinds of things. And here Swami Viditatmananda in his book has pointed out that these mental conditions in number 4, kamaha, sankalpa, sandehau, etc., are actually in an Upanishad, which is the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So this is lifted from there as part of this book. And so it doesn't mean that you don't have other mental conditions. It is simply some examples of the mental conditions. Then the last line summarizes all this. So he says, Hrir dhir bhir ityevam adin bhasayati ekadha chitti. So chitti here means, as we went to say before also, it's the same as sakshi. They're synonyms. Chitti and sakshi are the same. Chit also is the same. Awareness. This is awareness. Knowledge, awareness. The knowledge, awareness sees all the changes in the mind by itself. So far we are saying by itself the eye sees all the forms, By itself, the mind sees all the changes in the eye. By itself, the chitti sees the changes in the mind. Who sees the chitti? Who sees the chitti? Must be something else. How do you know that this is the awareness? Because you are saying that there is a transition from forms to the sense organs, from the sense organs to the mind, from the mind to the awareness. Then how do we know this is awareness? Who sees awareness? No one needs to see the awareness. What? How can that be? You're violating the very principles of how something is cognized. How do you know that this is awareness? How will I know this is the awareness? So this Shastra says, please understand that if that is the case, where the awareness also needs to be aware of by something else, the whole creation will fall apart. You cannot have anything functioning. Why? Swami Dayananda used to give this example again, another example, but just this way of thinking. So if you're saying, okay, wait, I have to figure out, why am I awareful? Who has an awareness of my awareful? So then I have to find another awareness that will be that will have the awareness of this awareness. Okay, fine. How do you know that awareness? Well, we need another awareness to be aware of that awareness. Okay, I'll wait. Right now, I have not figured out exactly what the rupam is, all the various forms and so on. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for this loop to close. Okay, so what's the next one? Well, there's another awareness that is looking at that awareness. Now we've lost count already, number 7 or 8. Okay, let's keep on going. This is what is called infinite regression. Okay, so let it be infinite regression. So why do I bother? It's okay. No. Because if it is infinite regression, there is no definiteness about the whole thing. It is still being looked at. You see that? It's still in process. I cannot tell whether this is a rupam, this is a form or not, because I'm still trying to figure out I haven't established it yet. Why haven't you established it? Because we're trying to figure out who is aware of this awareness, number x, then x plus 1, x plus 2. This is now how the creation is. So Swami Dayananda used to use the word clinching. I still remember that. He would make a fist and say, the whole world is definitely clinched. And why is it definitely clinched? Because the awareness doesn't need another awareness to prove it. How can you say that? How do you know it exists? How do you know that it is? This is the proof of your own existence. It doesn't need to be proved. We often feel, I need to have that experience of the Sakshi. In fact, this is not just a theoretical debate. Up until recently and even now mostly, the science is still trying to figure out, well, what is this awareness made out of? Because the science is always looking at things. They have to analyze it. Just like the coronavirus, you have to figure out exactly what does it look like, and what does it consist of? How does it replicate itself? How do we stop it? And so the science is figuring out exactly what the facts are, and I should see it. I should be able to reproduce it in the laboratory. So similarly, where is awareness? I can tell that I'm aware of the mind and so on and so forth. But then I need to figure out where the awareness is. And where do I find it? Is there a sample that I can get? Can I play on it? Can I work on it? No, you cannot work on it. Why not? Because you are the one who is working on it. You are the one who is working on it. Here's interesting. I was reading the a section in the Panchadashi, which has to do with finding joy and ananda. Joy and ananda. Joy means ananda. Ananda means joy. And so the analysis of that, very interesting. We'll go into that. Perhaps even in this course I will introduce some of the aspects. So it is very clear to us that we are joyful when we acquire or are close to something. Like if my loved one is near me, then I'm joyful. If I'm very fond of having ice cream, then if I get an ice cream, I'm joyful. If there are things that bother me, then I can be away from them and I'm joyful. If there is some bugs that are dangerous and so on, like in coronavirus, the farther I'm better off. So there are three things involved. One is things that give you joy, things that give you unhappiness, and the third one is what is called upeksha in Sanskrit. Upeksha means I don't care about them. That there are some straws living in the straws on the road, that doesn't give me either happiness or unhappiness. It is just there. So the questioner is, isn't the sakshi like a straw? Because I don't care about myself. All I care about are things that I should get or get rid of. But myself, I don't want to get rid of and so on, and I don't care. I have no feelings about myself. This is why I'm so busy doing things. I don't really just stay by myself. Because I have complete ignorance about the value of the self. So why am I saying that is? Because when you have this feeling, I am kind of like bored, I don't have anything else to do, I need to listen to some music, I need to eat something and so on. You are not really looking at the self as you should. You are not looking at the pure sakshi. You are looking at your mind, not the sakshi. So this is one of those in Hrir, Dhir, Bhir, and so one of them is indifference. So when you are saying that I don't have any real feelings about the sakshi, you don't know the sakshi. How can you have a real feeling about the sakshi unless you know about it? All you're doing is simply looking at your own mental condition. That's all. You're not looking at the sakshi. So if you were to look at the Sakshi, how I am going to experience the Sakshi? I need to really see that as in, just like the science I was saying earlier, you need to have some way of looking at the Sakshi. This is the real thing. You don't need to experience it as an object. In fact, the truth of the matter is, this is the only thing that you don't need to look at as an object. You are already there as you are. And in fact, when you say that I'm bored, you are looking at the mind as the boredom, not the Sakshi. The Sakshi is never bored. It's always happy. You don't know that. Why? Because this analysis has never been done before. And so at this point in time, what we have to do is to now follow the Shastra to see that the Sakshi or the chitti or the chit, so chit swarupoham, that my swarupa, my chit, doesn't need to have another Sakshi. Doesn't need to have another Sakshi. Well, do you have an example of doing this? How can that be? Very obvious. That really speaking, the sun, so last night, for example, it was so interesting. I was looking out of the window and nighttime, almost ready to go to sleep. The beautiful garden was lit up by moonlight. Lit up by moonlight. The garden by itself cannot reveal itself, but in the middle of the night I looked out before going to sleep and I found that it was so beautifully lit up, so cool by the moonlight. It was, I think, full moon last night, or maybe 1 or 2 days close to it. It was very bright. I was surprised how bright it was. It was lit up by moonlight. So the garden was itself lit up by the moonlight. Is the moonlight the source of the light? No. The moon is not the source of the light. It is reflected light from the sun. This is really a phenomenal thing, how bright this moon can be at night time. During the daytime, of course, it gets eclipsed by the sunlight, but at night time, if it is full moon, you can practically read a book. And so the moonlight, even though it gives light to the garden and reveals a beautiful set of flowers and so on and so forth, itself doesn't really have its own light. Okay, if it doesn't, then where does it come from? From the sunlight. The sunlight, where does that come from? Is there something else that is lighting up the sun? No. The sun lights up everything else. It doesn't need to have something else that lights it up. Does it light up itself? You can see whether it lights up itself or not. It is self-lighting. It doesn't need to know. It's the very nature of giving light. It doesn't need to be insecure that, my gosh, I hope that I'm okay. That let me examine myself to see if I am my light is extinguishing or not. At least in the sun's case, there are some changes going on. So that's just an example. But the sun doesn't feel, well, did I get shut off? Because it is the very nature of the light. Sakshi, you and I are exactly the same. There is no need for the awareness to be aware by another. It lights up everything else. It lights up the mind. You know, it's interesting that in the Shastra, the sun and the moon are symbolized as the Sakshi and the mind. So look at this. The sun and the moon. In fact, in some of the altars, vigrahas, like in Dakshinamurti, if you ever have been to our Sailorsburg ashram, in the ashram at the temple at the Sailorsburg ashram, you will see the vigraha, the altar of Dakshinamurti, which is basically Shiva, is the Shiva. And so on the Shiva you will see on the head, which is a moon and the sun, both shown to be endowed in the very top of the murti, the sun and the moon. And the sun and the moon signify the Sakshi and the mind. So the mind gets its ability to think from the Sakshi. So when I am, this we are going to go into much more detail in verse number 6, 7, and 8. So we'll go into this topic and really sketch it out in more detail. But for the time being, the mind has an ability. I, as a person, have the ability to be aware. I'm aware of things. I can look around. I can talk to people. I can so on and so forth. That ability of me as a person, which is my mind. I'm using my mind. I am my mind at the moment in talking, listening, so on and so forth. Is that the intrinsic nature of the mind? No. It is borrowed from the Sakshi. Just like the moonlight can do some things, it can light up some gardens, but itself requires the reflection of the sunlight. Then the sunlight, does that require the reflection of something else? No. So the Sakshi, the chit that you really are, is Drigeva natu drishyate. It doesn't require anything else. It is self-lighting like the sun. Self-lighting like the sun? Yes. It is awareness. So it's interesting. It's not as though, this is one of the basic confusions that really even science and everybody else has, that somehow awareness is a quality. It's one of the things that I possess. Like, so for instance, I have 2 hands. I'm very happy that I have 10 fingers. That's a quality. I'm very happy that I have eyes that are functioning, ears that are functioning, mouth that is functioning. I'm also very happy that I have awareness. As though the awareness is one of the things that I possess. So we ask you, who is it that possesses the awareness? Because when you say I possess the awareness as a quality, that means that I must be someone who is different from the awareness, who possesses the awareness. This is our issue. This is what we call ignorance and confusion in the very beginning. This is what creates the whole creation. In fact, it is just the opposite. I do not possess awareness. I am awareness. And I possess a mind. I possess a body. It's my possession. I'm associated with it. And I can be disassociated with it. It's like the electricity that is associated with the appliance. That's fine. In the electricity, this is one of the things is that Swami Dayananda used to say that. He says, if you really look at it, the Sakshi has no utility. Because we have this false thinking that everything must be useful to me. It must have some utility for me. All the way from, Swami Dayananda used to say that, from your toothbrush. If I don't have a toothbrush, supposing you go to a hotel somewhere and you forgot your toothbrush, which happens all the time. Then you at least have a toothpaste so you can put it on your finger and you can do this, and you're not very happy about it because you cannot really completely reach, but it's okay. Now if you forget the toothpaste also, now you're in bad shape. You're used to brushing your teeth at the end of the day or the beginning, and you cannot do it. So everything in my mind is that of utilitarian. I'm happy because I have a home, I have a car, I have food, etc., etc. So my idea of the self is that the self also must be useful to me. It must be useful. What difference does it make to me if it is not useful to me? So what that means is that I am someone who is different from awareness and all that. And awareness is useful to me. It's one of the qualities that I have. This is the situation. It's just electricity saying, that what is my utility if I cannot heat, if I am not the fan or the heater or the air conditioner? I have no utility. Look at this fan. He's making some contribution because it's a warm day and it's keeping the air circulated. I can't do that. My dear electricity, you are the very cause of all the utilities. Why are you feel so insecure? It is all the utilitarianism is due to you. Oh, I see. Okay. This is the confusion we all have. Then my Sakshi, how useful is it? Hey, you are the Sakshi. How can you be useful? You can have useful things that you can possess. But you're the very Sakshi itself. You don't need to be useful. Other things are useful to you. You don't need to be useful to something else. Well, but then I'm not very happy. Okay, now we have got, okay, good. At least you are thinking the right way. That you realize that you are the very Swarupa of the Sakshi. Sakshi is not one of the properties. You are the Sakshi. Yeah, I can see that, but that I'm still not very happy. The reason you're not happy is because the way you're evaluating yourself is not as yourself as the sakshi, but yourself as the mind. How? I don't understand that. If I'm the sakshi, then I should be happy. This is the whole creation. Until you know, your idea of the sakshi is not really accurate at this point. What do you mean by that you are the sakshi and I should be happy? Well, if I'm the sakshi, then okay, what do you mean by the sakshi? Well, I'm not sure. Maybe, is it something that is temporary? Oh, I'm not sure of that. Is it something only happens during the day? See, you've got all these doubts. You have no idea what sakshi is. And so therefore, whatever you have, which is an understanding of the mind, you can only express your experiences. The very nature of the awareness which gives rise to experiences, you have no clear idea about that. This is what we have to do. If you do that, then you will, your happiness will reveal itself. Your nature is happiness, but right now you don't feel that. It's like because you want to experience it. That experience will come with understanding. So that being the case, we can now at least enter the beginning of the 5th verse, which is the end of this whole section. And so we will go into that in more detail later, but at least let us enter the 5th verse, which says, the 5th verse is all about the sakshi. The first verse, of course, is all about the arrangement in the sense of what is satyam, what is mithya. The 2nd, 3rd, and 4th is the explanation of this arrangement, this setup. And now that we have seen that drigeva natu drishyate, and so ekadha chittihi bhasayati, that chitti is now the main subject of the 5th verse. This is where you say, I'm not sure what the awareness is. Yes, I think I can see I'm the awareness, but what I look like, I don't know. And so that is now being explained in the 5th verse, which says, na udeti. It is not born. All of these are extremely significant and important concepts about the sakshi. And at first they look very strange and really? Not born? How can that be? But the more you look into it, that is interesting just when I say that. So, there is it's an interesting thing to see. The more, what triggered my thought was the more you see. So what happens is, there is the way to see whether a thing is real or not is to examine it. It's to examine it. Because it's a possibility that you don't know the reality of something until you are close enough to examine it. Like, for example, sometimes if there is a person coming from far away, you're sitting outside your patio or veranda and you see something coming from far away. At one time, you're not even sure whether it's an animal or a human being. And then as the person is walking, you find, oh, this is a human being. Oh, I wonder who's coming. At this point, you don't know who. You've already made a decision. It's not a cow, it's a human being. But you don't know which human being because it is so far away. It's still vague. Then as the person comes back, there comes a point where you can identify, so my neighbor, he's coming to... So then you can identify. So similarly here also, you have a vague idea, but you're not sure of exactly what it is. So they say that the way to distinguish between a false thing and a real thing is to examine it. And in doing so, the false thing, the falseness of the false thing will become apparent to you as you examine it, and the reality of the real thing will become apparent as you examine it. So, this is exactly what needs to do. If you're not sure about which one it is, then go close to it. Close to it means to really look into it with some depth, become close to it. So here, at this point in time, the examination of the Sakshi is just beginning. We are now examining it. And the first thing it says is, Naudeti. It is not born. And immediately my mind says, I don't know anything. I can't think of anything which is not born. How can anything not be born? You see, so there's some vagueness and some doubt, some doubtful thinking. All this, your mind this is an interesting thing. Your mind is not going to grasp something until it is very clear to you. Just like the approaching person, you don't know, your mind will say, you can say, hey, your mind, can't you see that person? He says, I don't know, I can see the person, but I don't know who that is yet. Just wait. Let's go a little closer. Then the mind says, pulls out from the memory of the person, oh, this is John, my neighbor. Yes, this is that. So you now have a definiteness to it. So similarly here also, right now when I say it is not born, your mind is saying, what? How can there be something which is not born? And as you examine it, as you become closer to it, you will find, because I mean, as a representative of this body of knowledge, I'm not going to tell you something which is not true. I'm not in that business. I don't want anything back from you. I'm not starting an institution. I don't want money or anything. This is what the Shastra is saying. The Shastra says, wait. You are confused about yourself, and let me tell you what your facts are. That's all. And so, at this point in time, I will not tell you something which is not true, that it is not born. So if I am saying it is not born, I mean it. So please examine it. So this is a exercise in self-examination. And so we will continue with this. I just wanted to enter the verse number 5, and then we will go into it in more detail. And I think as far as reading the book by Swami Viditatmananda, which is based on same kind of, we are all following the same knowledge. What I think I had suggested to you, and you're willing to do, you should be doing whatever you feel like it, is to probably wait until we talk about something before you read the book. So I think now, if you want, you can really go through all the verses. Let's see, where are we? So here is looking at the essence of the text. So from page 24, which is where the verse number 1 starts, and this whole section called the essence of the text is up to page 52. So 24 to 52. I think you can easily read up to 44, 42, 43 or something. And then this will consolidate what we have talked about. And then in next class we will finish verse number 5 also. And then you can also finish. Or if you want to read ahead, it's okay with me. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that it might be better. Or read it simultaneously. So in this way, I think I'm very happy that we have a chance to talk, alive between a teacher and a student, and also backed up by a reference book, which is taught by the same similar kind of sampradaya. In fact, I think what I'm just thinking out ahead is that once we complete this, then we will go back to chapter 8 of the Gita for a while, and then we'll take a more advanced text in the next one, if you are still interested in doing so, because I think I like this way that you have a reference book to go to back up the teaching, so you have something more tangible to look at in that sense. So with that, I'll close today's class. As I mentioned in my previous class, we have a big function in our house next Friday, and it is very possible that we may have some people be staying over, and so there is a possibility I may not have a class next Saturday. But at this point in time, I'm thinking I'm going to have a class. So I'm just giving you a slight possibility. But if the class is cancelled, I'll send you an email. If you don't hear from me, then assume that there is a class, and we will have it next week as well. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Let's see if you have any questions or comments. All right. So Shanti Kumar Chiluka ji asks, in humans the objects, the eyes, the mind, sakshi, what is the case in animals? So there's not that much of a difference, Shanti Kumar. It's pretty much the same. It is just that the mind of an animal is not yet developed to evaluate itself. So it goes through the basics of being secure and evaluating danger and looking at food. The other day it was interesting. I have a lot of lizards in my backyard. So I was watching this lizard, and it's really fascinating. There was a beetle, a small bug, which is about a quarter of an inch and so on, which was just came to the path of this lizard. And the lizard just devoured him in seconds. He just goes to it, was looking all around, and he found this little bug, and he says, aha, food for me. And how quickly it swallowed it and went away was just amazing. So the animal's mind is very aware of danger, food, possibilities, and so on. What it doesn't have is the next step, which the humans have, which is a self-evaluation. I am good looking. I am not good looking. I am white. I am black. I am Indian. It doesn't have that. It is born as Ishvara has made the millions of species, and it goes through the life just evaluating others, not itself. And in fact, that's the reason where the animals cannot have any punya papa. They cannot do anything wrong. Punya papa only comes in when you are supposed to do something and you don't. The animals are just part of the whole cycle. So anyway, to answer your question, the basics of the Drsya Viveka are there, but the possibility of looking at the Drik, which even the human beings do not start with. So in a way, this is called Pashu. So the word Pashu is used, means that it's an animal, means it's under the control. So the human beings, when they're born, are also Pashus. And but we can become a Pashupati if we were to understand our truth. And for that we need effort, we need Viveka, we need Vichara, which the human beings can, but the animals cannot. Sam says that I like the reference book because I can see the spelling of the Sanskrit words. You're very right. Absolutely. Shubha K. Vijaji couldn't find the recording of last week's class. So let me ask, so the recording of the video was there. The recording of the audio was not there until last night. I was late in transferring the audio, uploading the audio. And so I did that around, I think about 8 o'clock, 8:30 last night. There was a bunch of them that was left over. But the video, of course, goes into YouTube right away. So I'm not sure whether your question is with respect to the audio in the video or the audio per se, which is a separate file that I can do. So please let me know. Ashwin says, how are all the qualities of the Sakshi in verse number 5 inferred? So, this is an interesting observation. Inferred, not sure what you mean by inferred. You mean how are they even stated? Because here there is no inference involved until we can see the truth of it by the Shastra. So the Shastra already knows it. Vedas knows it. This is the way things are. It doesn't infer. The Shastra doesn't infer. The Shastra asks you to infer. So the Shastra by itself is not confused. Doesn't say, I think this is the way it is. Oh, it must be. No, maybe it's not. It's not like that. Because it is the very knowledge of Ishvara. Ishvara is not confused. Doesn't need inference. But the people who he has created have to go through an inference. So we have to infer. But first we have to say, what is it that we have to infer? Until we know that, we cannot even grasp it. So all of that is part of the vichara. So that's how it is. I just wanted to... Chandra says the playlist on the main YouTube page, on the playlist, and so that explains it. Ashwin, if you still had some questions on that, either you can send me an email or you can even do that now. But that's my understanding of what your question is, that how are all the qualities of Sakshi inferred. So the word inferred, I need to understand what you mean by that. Okay, I'll wait for another minute or so to see if there's any other questions that you may have. Doesn't look like it. So with that, I take your leave. Stay well, stay healthy, and hopefully we'll see you next week. And if that class gets postponed for some reason, some family things are going on, then I'll let you know with an email. So watch for an email as late as Friday, because I may have to cancel it. There's a question, Sweta. If we are the Sakshi, why do we strive to achieve things in life? In fact, that is my question to you. If we are the Sakshi, then why do you strive to achieve things in life? It just means you don't know you are the Sakshi. You don't know you're complete, you don't need to do anything. Therefore, you feel you have to do something. And if you do, then you are free whether you do or not do. You are free to do. It's not as though you cannot do anything at that point. So Jivan Mukta means that you can be, this is why some of the Mahatmas, sometimes they are lying down in a cave, and if somebody comes in to ask them some questions, they might do a little bit of a class, but they're not really interested in teaching. Raman Maharshi was one of like that. He's really not that interested in teaching, but people kept badgering him. And there are others like Swami Chinmayananji and Swami Dayananji and lots of others who really want to communicate it to others so they can do. So what I'm saying is that once you know the Sakshi, then you can either do or not do. It doesn't make any difference. Either way is fine. Anyway, that's the question. Ashwin says another way of asking is, how did the sages realize these qualities of the Sakshi? Okay, so the sages, so the way that it happens is that the entire Vedas is the expression of Ishvara. So the Vedas were not written by human beings. It is and they're always there. It's not as though it started. Nothing gets started. It's always, the Vedas are always there. Ishvara is always there. Always there. And so it's in the air all the time. So then what happens is that rishis who are capable of, they have refined their mind to such an extent that they can now receive what is already there. Kind of like, I think I've given that example, that at the moment, at this point, there must be thousands of radio and television signals in the air. They're already there. But, relatively speaking, because they have to be broadcast and so on. But if you do not have the instruments to catch them, you cannot make them real to yourself. So once you have a very sophisticated TV receiver, then you can now display all these channels. So similarly, the rishis from their previous lives, they have refined their minds to such a degree that their minds become very receptive to this. And so so this is really not inferred in that sense. This is all the word of Ishvara, which are definite. And so we just have to understand it to get to the benefits of it. Sam Dillon, don't we still need to feed the body? Yes, we will talk much later about that. But that's, the real Jivan Muktas are the ones who are aware of the fact that you are separate from the body, but for the time being, in order to keep the body going, you do need the food. It's not a real imprisonment in that sense. It is a joy to fulfill the will of the Creator, because what's happened is that one side and answer to this question that Sam had brought up is that desires that are planted in me by the Creator do not create a problem for me. But the desires that I come out with on my own create a problem for me. So the hunger and thirst are something that is given by the Creator, and there are means to fulfill it in most cases. It may get delayed, there may be malnutrition, that's very possible. But it is not this. So one thing we should see is that we should divide the issue in life into two segments. One is so. In fact, in Sanskrit, these words are used. One is called dukkha. So dukkha means some unpleasant situation. The other one is shoka, which is sorrow. So the lack of food gives you dukkha, but not shoka. Dukkha is okay. Like for example, I will give the example that supposing you discovered some kind of a medical problem which gives you discomfort. Okay? And so discomfort, you go to a doctor. Now, if this happened to somebody I know very recently, this happens. What a shocking thing. And I'll give you that example later. But anyway, you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, "Oh, I know exactly what it is. You take this medicine, and I think you'll be okay." And so you are not okay for a few days, so you have dukkha. But if the doctor says, "I think this is cancer," I'm telling you, this is what happened to I wouldn't say he's a very close friend, but he's a friend who just recently went for discomfort from his stomach. And it's found he has a very fourth stage cancer. And it's a complete shock. So the dukkha is just the discomfort of a problem. Shoka is where you say, "Oh my God, what is going to happen to me?" So the feed the body is part of the dukkha, not part of the shoka. That's still the point I was making. Okay, and Shri says, how is there discernment between what was originally an oral transmission and now is an alphabetic literate transmission? Discernment. So discernment means that at that time there was not an attempt, because the technology had not yet developed in terms of paper, and so most of the writings were done on palm leaves and so on. And because of the difficulty of doing that, people could just replicate the oral tradition by classes and so on and so forth, and it's possible to do. But as the population grew and also the technology became available, then the oral tradition got morphed into books and so on. And so the oral tradition has suffered a little bit because of this. It's kind of like, once you have a watch and you can't tell what date it is. Once you have a date on the watch, then you cannot tell, because anyway, that's a separate example. But the oral tradition is still there, but it is now supported by having books and so on that can give you the same information. All right, great. We will hopefully see you next week. Bye bye.